Hi, welcome to this Yoga Foundations Essentials practice for week 1. Theme is feet as foundation, and we are going to work on our feet both in active ways through movement practices, also through still practices to loosen up our feet and ankles. We will be using a block for this practice and also have some wall space. We will be doing a chair pose with our back against the wall, and hopefully that allows us some room to move the feet in chair pose without falling over. So a little bit of wall space is needed. I'm using about that much. That much is needed. So great. So let's get started. We're going to start on the back with the legs extended out along the mat and arms in goalpost position. And so your arms are by the sides with elbows bent. And as you inhale, you're going to reach an arm back. And as you do that, the same side heel, press that heel forward and open your toes as wide as you can. So you're really stretching out the soles of your feet, and by pressing the heel forward, you're stretching out the calf as well. As you exhale, relax back to center, and try that on the other side. Your arm reaches back, and the same side heel presses forward as you open your toes, spread the toes. Exhale, you come back to center. Go back and forth like this a few times. If you can, breathe in and out through the nose. And as a reminder, you can always place the tip of your tongue on the roof of the mouth. That's a pretty good reminder of breathing in and out through the nose during the practice. And as you're breathing in and out, you press the heel forward, open toes, go back and forth like this a couple more times to start getting blood and sensation into ankles and feet. Okay, very good. And once you're done with your second side, second toes spread open, you can exhale, relax, arms in a relaxed position, knees bent with the soles of your feet on the floor. And from here, you're gonna keep your hips where they are, keep your upper body where it is, and you're gonna press the outside edges of your feet into the floor and lift your inner arches. And that's without a ton of leg movement. So you inhale, press the outer arches down. And then as you exhale, you swing to your inner arches, press your inner arches down, and lift the outside of your feet up. And go back and forth like this. Inhale, lifting your inner arch. Exhale, lifting your outer arch. Go back and forth like this. This may be accompanied by some leg movement, but see to it that most of the work is done on inner-outer ankle. So for example, you could just keep the ankle still and move your knee back and forth and kind of get the same result. But this is the process is different here. If you try to keep your thighs still, start to move the ankles in inversion and eversion. So try that a couple more times. Very good. All right, and then you bring your feet back to center. Take a deep inhale here. And as you exhale, you're going to come up to seated. And you're going to start in a cross-legged position, but then bring one leg up. And you're going to draw one knee into the chest. So from here, and if on the floor this doesn't work, you can always sit on a chair. But you're going to draw your knee in. And as you do that, you're going to point your toes down toward the floor. Point your ankles down. This stretches the front of your leg and engages the sole of your foot in the back. And then from here, the opposite way to go is to hold your hamstring, extend your leg. It doesn't have to be full extension. Extend your leg as much as you can and press your heel forward and open your toes like we did in the first practice. So you're going to go back and forth like this. And of course, this is some hip movement. This is knee movement as well. But the focus can be on the pointing of the toes and ankle as you draw your knee in, and the extension of your toes and the heel pressing forward as your leg straightens. So you go back and forth like this a few times to get the joints mobilized, so ankle joints, toe joints, as well as knees and hips. So you go back and forth like that another couple times. Okay, great. And then you release. And we can switch it up. Pull your other shin in, Draw it in and point your toes down. So your ankle's pointing down, your toes are pointing down, your toes are flexed. And then you switch from there to holding the hamstring, leg extension, press your heel up and open your toes as wide as you can. And you go back and forth like this at the pace of your inhales and exhales. I usually inhale as I open and exhale as I point. And you go back and forth like this. And this foot might have a different range, the hamstring might have a different range, the toes might have a different range. Go back and forth like that another couple times. Okay, great. And then either A, you can try that on one side followed by the other side, or for some abdominal activation as well, you can try both knees, both shins in, point your toes down, and then you extend your legs as you hold your hamstrings, open your toes, and you can go back and forth like this a few times. So once again, if this feels like, this is also a bit of a balance challenge. So if it feels like it's too much balance, just stick with one leg, and I would say switch to the other leg now. And we'll do that a couple more times here to synchronize the breath with the movement of your legs, with the movement of your ankles, with the movement of your toes. Okay. Great, and then come to hands and knees. And we'll take our toes curled under. You're going to spread the toes as widely as you can. And then add as much or as little weight as you'd like onto the toes so you can actually, so you can activate the toes into the floor and get a stretch in the soles of your feet. So hands and knees is okay, press your toes down. Or if you'd like to add some, like a modicum of weight on to your toes, press your toes down. The most intense is sitting all the way upright. You can still press your toes down so you're activating your toes. And we'll be doing this in plank as well, perhaps as a repetition. But the toes are pushing down, so you're activating the soles of the feet, you're activating your toe flexors. There's 2 more breaths here. Take a big inhale, take a big exhale, and one last time. Okay, great, and then come out of that, wiggle your toes, and we'll take a relaxed lunge next. So from hands and knees, right foot forward, and you're going to relax your hips toward your front heel. If your foot is very far forward, this is more of a hip phenomenon. To make this more of a foot phenomenon, bring your foot back. So when you relax your hips down, you see how much more of an angle I can get with my ankle flexion in that way. So that gives me a little bit more of a stretch in the Achilles and the back of the leg. So this is a relaxed lunge. Make sure your knee is okay with this. Ultimately, if the foot far back doesn't work for you, go a little bit further forward. But as an option, try out this, it's almost like a half squat. So you relax your hips down, and we're pausing here. Of course, this is also hip work. You might be feeling left psoas a lot, right outer hip. The knee might be feeling this. And another couple breaths here. Okay, great. And then so you can press your hands into the floor, shift your hips back, and we'll try the other side. I'm going to turn around for demonstration purposes. You don't have to. You can just bring your left foot forward. And once again, if the foot's very far forward, this winds up being almost exclusively hip. You see that the angle in my ankle is not too severe in any direction. And once I bring my foot back, the left foot's on the floor, the knee can go in front of it, and my hips relax toward my heel. Now this is much more dynamic for shin, for ankle, and for the sole of the foot. Okay? The front hand, where you're supporting yourself, front hand can be anywhere. Whatever works best for you. Left hand could also be on the floor. It could be on your thigh. That's where I like it because I like to navigate my knee a little bit, support that. But from here, the idea is to relax and let the pose do some of the work. If your left heel is down, that's fine. If it's up off the ground, that's fine. If it is off the ground, just make sure it's not too intense for the balance. So if you are forward where the knee is up, just make sure all the joints are okay. And there's 2 more breaths here. Take a big inhale, big exhale, and take a deep breath in. Okay, great. And then hands plant, shift your hips back. And then you curl your toes under, from hands and knees, curl your toes under, and lift your thighs back into downward facing dog. And we can do this downward facing dog with the knees bent. I like this because it gives more options for your ankles and for your hips. With the knees bent, you can arch your back a little bit here and lift your sitting bones up. You can keep your knees bent, and as you inhale, come up onto your tippy toes, and it's like you're trying to push your toes down. And then as you exhale, press your heels back as far as you can go. And go back and forth like this several times. So of course this is some arm strength, a little bit of stability through the core line. But the focus here is really the mobility of toes, mobility of ankles. And of course we're going to feel, in addition to stretches in the hamstrings, you're going to get more of a stretch around the calf muscle group. So you go back and forth like this in downward facing dog another few times. Okay, very good. And then from there you can bend your knees a little bit more, step up and come up to standing. So all the way up to standing. And this is where we're going to use the wall for chair pose. So my feet, and you can always move the mat. My main concern here is I don't want you to slip as you're in chair. So you can see where I am. My floor, my mat are such that I know I'm not going to slip either way. But this is the chair pose with the back against the wall. Also have your block ready. Squeeze the block. That's going to help support our knees a little bit for this. Okay? So press both feet through the floor, squeeze the block, and just feel terra firma. Feet press in through the floor with the toes lengthening forward. We're going to do chair twice. And the first one, probably the more familiar one, you drive your feet down. If you'd like to, you can also reach your arms up. Okay. If it feels okay, you can slide down another inch or so. And take a couple more breaths here. So you squeeze the block, drive your feet down. And then to come out of this, you're going to slide up the wall, press your feet in through the floor, you arrive up. Okay, and that's option number 1. Option number 2, we'll get down into chair, so let's try it again. So you're in the chair. Option number 2 is in the feet. You're going to alternate and squeeze the block, alternate between lifting your heels up high and your toes pressed down. And then your heels come down and lift your toes up. And so we'll try that 4 more times. So you lift your heels up, and heels come down. Lift your toes up, toes come down. Lift your heels up, heels come down, toes up, toes come down. Twice more, heels come up, heels come down. Open your toes and lift them up. And they come down. 1 more time, heels up, and heels replaced on the floor. Open your toes up. Feet down, and you slide back up. Okay, you come out of that, and you're going to come onto the mat again, into plank. You can do plank with your hands on the floor, or with your forearms on the floor. All right, and we're going to be here for hopefully no longer than 30 seconds. With the heels pressed back, and then from there, your toes are curled under. If you feel it's available, you can press your toes down, try to lift up on your tippy toes, which I come up onto just my big toes. You can also internally rotate the legs so more toes are on the ground. But from there, it's almost like doing leg push-ups with just the toes. Maybe I'll turn around so you can see this. So it's like toe push-ups. You come up on the big toes, you come back down. You come back on the big toes, you come back down. Try that 3 more times. Lift up, and you come back down. You lift, and you come back down. And one last time, you lift up, And you come back down, lower to the floor. Okay, so this is, we have warmed up quite a bit. Legs are warm, core is warm. From here, curl your toes under and press your heels back. And pause here a moment. So the hips are pressing into the floor, heels press back. And when you activate your feet, you get a sense of the length through the psoas. You might even feel this is a low back release. Also, my head is up. You can always place your head on the ground. But I'll just keep my head up. And from there, point your toes back. And now you're going to slide your toenails as far back as you can. And notice the difference that the toe and foot positions make for the rest of the leg. So let's do that one more time. Curl your toes under, press the heels back, and notice how the footwork changes what's happening throughout the rest of the leg, maybe even into low back. And then point your toes back. Very nice. Take a deep breath in. Big exhale. And one last time. Okay, great. And then release. We're going to lie on the back. Last thing we're doing is taking the feet up in the air after all that work. I place a block underneath the hips. This is Viparita Karani. And the feet are up in the air. The legs don't have to be straight. They can be. They don't have to. I just want to make it easy for you to keep your feet up in the air. And the 4 foot movements are as follows. The first one is you're opening your toes as you breathe in. And you're making a fist with your feet as you exhale. So you go back and forth like this. Inhale. Exhale. Deep breath in. Exhale. And let's do that twice more. Okay, and then relax your toes. The second is extension and flexion of the heel. So you press the heels up, distal flexion, and then you lift the tops of the feet up in plantar flexion and go back and forth like this a few times. Breathing in and out through the nose. Tongue to roof of the mouth as a reminder to breathe nasally. Okay, so that's the second move. The third move, we've done it before at the beginning of our sequence. You're going to turn the sole of the foot inward and then turn the soles of your feet outward. So we did this on the floor. Now we're doing it up in the air. Okay, and this is a little bit less in our wheelhouse in terms of in terms of how we use our ankles throughout the day. So these movements don't need to be terribly big. Okay, great. And then finally, with your legs together, perhaps feet together, you're making the biggest circles in one direction with your ankles. So once again, the whole legs are not moving. The legs are still, and the ankles are moving, so just the feet are moving. And then you take several circles in the opposite direction. Okay, great. And then from there, you plant your feet on the floor. Pause there. Take a breath or two to experience the feet, the terra firma, the feet flat on the ground. And then you lift your hips. Take the block out from underneath. Extend your legs forward. Take a breath or two here. Notice the feedback your feet are giving you from all the work we've done with them. All right, great. And then come back up to seated. All right, so I hope this felt like both a brief yet powerful practice and one that really gets our brain into our feet. Because once we sort of make that connection, we really have dominion over our entire system. So thank you so much for practicing with me, and take care. Namaste.